Welcome to Funnel Reboot, the podcast that shares ideas on how to upgrade your lead generation. Here is your host, Glenn Schmeltzley.
Welcome to Funnel Reboot, where we explore how to upgrade our lead generation. If you want to get new episodes as soon as they're out, please hit the subscribe button in your favorite podcast listening app. And I love getting your feedback. I invite you to tweet me at Funnel Reboot. You can comment back to me on Instagram at Funnel Reboot, or you can use the feedback form on Funnel Reboot, or you can leave listener feedback at 613-703-7073. So this episode, we're talking about what actually goes on to make digital marketing happen. And this is part of our series where we're talking to masters of marketing. And I thought a really good person to bring on today would be somebody who has spent a lot of time under the hood of many websites and has had a lot of exposure to the different marketing activities that real businesses want to carry out. And he has been able to facilitate making it happen. And he's going to share with us today how he does that. So let's hear from our guest on today's show, Steve Foster. Hey, Steve, thanks for coming on.
Hey, Glenn, thanks for having me on. It's a pleasure to be here.
Yeah, I'm glad to have you. So let's set it up with explaining kind of what the under the hood things need to actually make happen. Am I right that when someone sets up a website and they have a business that they want to promote and generate leads on, the website doesn't do everything they need all by itself, right?
Yeah, exactly. A lot of times when you see simple websites that are being put up, there's a contact form, and that contact form simply sends an email to the owner, and they get an email and they're supposed to respond to it, right? It's a very basic way of doing things, and it works. It's just that if you're trying to serve on a larger scale or keep track of business information and learn from your business, this isn't exactly the best way to do it. There are plenty of tools now that you can create a more interactive experience for your users. You can get more information and data. You could track data, CRMs, like a customer relationship management, and plenty of other things that I'm happy to get into that would be helpful for your audience. And
and that's a great place to put it because we actually need to think of the website as being part of something larger. Most marketers have heard the term technology stack. So you'd agree with me that the website is just one piece of that whole stack.
Absolutely.
Okay, so let's assume that the website's there. We've got some form of analytics on it, as you said, and probably our good old standby contact form. What would you say are the activities that people can do once they're ready to spread their wings with a few of these elements that they have in their tech stack? What becomes possible?
Well, there are literally so many things. It really depends on what you want to do and what type of business you are, right? A local business, bakery or salon will have a much different set of needs than a purely online business. Say you're selling insurance online or you're selling services.
Right.
It's very, very different needs. So it's important to kind of understand these needs first before trying to dive into technology and that, because I can tell you from experience, you can spend a lot of time down that rabbit hole, trying out all the new whiz bangs and technology.
Yes. A very good point. So let's kind of nail our requirements first. And they could range, but they're all to do with the way that you can communicate today. So, for example, I'm sure you would say it's possible for a business with this kind of stack. They could do things that allow the website to communicate via email, right?
Yes.
We can probably go further to say if someone's put in a mobile device number that we can call or text.
Yes, absolutely. And
okay.
That's another one of pet peeves is people that have phone numbers and email addresses that show up, but you can't click on them. So if you're on a mobile device, I'm sure you've experienced it. You're on a mobile device, you see it. And then when you want to email that person, instead of just clicking a button, you actually have to go into your email program and then manually type in and then you forget, how do they spell that again? You go back.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
So it's just these little things that improve your user's experience, your customer's experience, right? You might not be into tech, but your customers are. And the goal here is to try and make the customer's experience easy so that they want to do business with you. I mean, if they really want to, they'll figure it out and they'll do it. It's just people have a higher expectation today of ease of use.
They do.
Yeah, so I hope
and they want to be served. I mean, they're seeing, the large internet companies provide these services so seamlessly through their phones or through their, PC. They come to expect that even from, as you said, the local bakery.
Absolutely. And it's not as complicated to do as you think or expensive to do as you think.
Right. Great point. We do have multiple pieces of tech that are kind of needed for this. Each are, good. As you said, if a person has some information that they've given to you, that's probably sitting in a CRM or maybe a marketing automation tool. Each of these tools is purpose built for a different thing. Steve, my question is, what ties them all together? How are people actually able to use these stacks with, as you say, not paying an arm and a leg for an integrator to make, two specific ones talk to each other?
Wow, there's a loaded question, my friend. In my experience, and it's sort of the quest for the Holy Grail, is to have a tool that can do all of these things and integrate all of these things. And it's hard. It's gotten easier with tools like Zapier, which is an API system and API stands for Application Program Interface, which just allows you to pass information from one program to another. So in other words, if this happens on my website, then do this in my email marketing software, right? Add this person's name to my email marketing software. Add this person's name to my QuickBooks Online, or so the possibilities become really limitless with a tool like Zapier. And so if you don't know how to code, this becomes a useful tool.
Yes, I've heard it described, APIs, and this is really loose, but if someone has not been accustomed to this, we could even take it back to, let's say, the old world of phone exchanges. And APIs kind of allow there to be like a dial tone, or at least a phone number system that allows one entity to talk to another entity. So would you say that at least allows us to understand APIs at a basic sense?
Yeah, ultimately what I'd like to tell people is we're just pushing ones and zeros around. We're just pushing information around so that you don't have to do data entry over and over again.
Right. Okay. Are there any other technologies that we should know, or at least acronyms that, we should be prepared to hear if we're trying to figure out how to make this Holy Grail fit together?
So let's maybe start with sort of the basics of what needs to be in place, so that if you do decide later on, if your audience does decide to get more complicated or sophisticated down the road, these things are already in place, collecting information, doing certain things behind the scenes, so that someone that you decide to work with, right, a digital marketing specialist or a funnel specialist or a social media marketing specialist, they'll be able to help you because they'll be able to see what's been going on before they showed up. Right. And so they'll be able to, and then they'll be able to start optimizing and improving things. So at least you have a baseline of, this is where we were, and now this is where we are. If a lot of people that, don't put these things in place, and then they start working with a company and they don't really have a kind of a basis for a comparison. So to that end, you should have, everyone knows Google Analytics. You should have some sort of, tracking code that just looks at the activity that your site visitors will go through, where they came from, what pages they click on, and kind of what their journey is. We've all heard Facebook Pixel. Well, it's easier than ever to add Facebook Pixel to your website. So this way, it's not just making a link to say, hey, like us on Facebook. It's being able to track visitors that came in from maybe an article or an ad that you posted on Facebook. They came to your website. You can track these things.
Sounds good. And I remember way back, because I'm that old, that, there was actually a pixel. It was usually a 1x1 little clear little dot. But the important thing is, I remember someone told me it's sitting on the web server of that other entity. And that when you send a visitor to your page and that pixel call is there, it goes over to that other web server and says, hey, somebody just made it here.
True.
Am I right?
True. It's gotten way
but
more.
It's gotten way more
elaborate and sophisticated now, which is good. It just provides you more insight so that you can again figure out who's coming. What are they all about? We talk a lot about marketing, and people get worried about these tracking pixels and that. But as an ethical marketer, these are the things that actually help you figure out who's listening, who actually wants what you're offering. And then, there's this super powerful thing that you can do in Facebook now that it just says, okay, well, here's my customers. Here's the people who have actually decided to do business with me. Here's a list of who they are. Now I want to run ads. I don't need to know everything. Just go find customers like the ones I already have. And Facebook has all this data. So without you knowing what's going on, the AI and the algorithm is going on behind the scenes and saying, oh, hey, here's more people like the ones you already have. They might be interested in what you have to say.
Yes, and it's even obscured to the advertiser.
Yes.
This data is just being anonymized. And you're right, it is helpful, even from an analytics standpoint, to know who my customers are. Any marketer, any salesperson out there would agree that having more information at an aggregate level about who your customer is just makes you better able to serve them.
Right.
Anything else that we haven't covered yet?
Well, again, for local business, I think Google My Business is a critical tool. And, Google has a suite of tools that they've now kind of put together as a Google marketing platform. So maybe in the show notes and afterwards, I'll send you a link, or I'll leave a link for visitors that they can go on my website after this, straightmedia.com/funnel reboot. And there'll be a list of links that we'll talk about today and kind of what these tools are and what you should have. Because I realize it's hard to do this on a podcast format. So just knowing where to go to get more information, I think would be helpful.
Perfect. Anything else on the local business front that you think companies should consider as the way that they build their stack or use digital technology to serve their customers? Anything else?
So Google My Business, having a proper emailing program, I think, is really important. A lot of companies like GoDaddy and whatnot, they'll give you, free or cheap email addresses. I always recommend to customers, either go with my Office 365 or go with G Suite. These are the two professional email services. And I can't tell you, just one little thing that I'll share. I can't tell you how often I've gone in and saved customers money because they thought they were doing it cheaply by buying email addresses from GoDaddy, but then they pay for every one that they have. I have probably like 80 email addresses. I pay for one account. So I pay my whatever it is, $13, $15 a month. I get unlimited storage online. I get, software tools and different things. And then all of these email addresses can come to me and be rooted in everything from, social at and info at and customers at, all these email addresses that other people were paying for one-offs. So it's a way to save some money by having a professional email program.
Couldn't agree more. And because all of those ones and zeros, as you said, also apply to communications, I found the same goes true in the phone world, and that I'm often being told by, large carriers or some people such as the hosts that you mentioned, like GoDaddy, they'll say, well, we can add a phone number for you and this. Well, they are using the same tools that someone could go and access. In my case, I found a Twilio service that is really reasonable and allows for you to have a phone number and do anything you want with that incoming phone call. And yet, the services that were most convenient to me, like my host provider and these others, they were charging like 5 to 10 times
Yes.
the price. So all they're doing is taking the same functionality that I could go and get, maybe with somebody's help, but that by doing it once and actually going to the service that is made and purpose built for that, it's far better than using what happens to be handy. Don't you agree?
Right. What they make easy for you to buy.
Right. A little too easy.
Yeah.
So when we're thinking of how people are setting these things up, what else might they need to know? And when do you think they should determine that maybe they're in over their heads? I don't want to give people the idea that this really is easy, but maybe you can help me understand, is there like a point where they tap out, or how do you handle that when people come to you and say, build this, or, should I build it?
Right. So, and I think that's a great point to touch on. And I think we talked about this before the podcast is a concept I like to call, learn this or look away. Right? There are certain things that you want to learn, you want to invest the time necessary, because it's things that you're going to need every day. And if you invest a little bit of time to learn how to do something a little bit different than maybe what you're used to, you're going to find that it makes you more professional. It saves you hours and hours of back and forth of data entry, of lost communication, so that you can go back and focus on what's important, which is serving your customer. Right? So I like to teach people about this concept of you need to learn this. And I think you need to have that distinction. And then there's other things that's, you're never going to do this again. By the time you need to do it now. We need to problem solve and troubleshoot, and we might have false starts. So it's probably best for you to just look away for a minute, let a pro fix what they need to fix and get it working, because then once it's working, you just need to use it. It's sort of like if your car breaks down, you don't need the mechanic to explain every little bolt that they're tightening and why, and what part they're using and why, and how it was built and designed. You don't care. Just get it working. Close the hood.
I agree.
Close the hood and send me on my way. Right?
Yeah. It's the instance of knowing when you need it, though. I think what I find the other side of it is you want to allow people the chance to expand their mind for a minute, because I've found many times I wasn't aware that something that I had been doing again and again and again could be automated. So on the one hand, it's if you notice that you are writing down a 1, 2, 3 step process, there is, I'm sure, something out there that allows you to collapse those 3 steps into 1 or maybe 0 steps. So first is, look for it, and then maybe Google maybe the names of the tools you're using and the word automation, right? Or integration. And if you do, that's probably a good way to understand that it's possible.
Google is your friend. And learning, and oftentimes and I hear this so often, is most of the time when you don't know something, you don't even know how to formulate the question. You don't even know what to ask Google so that you can get an answer. So this is, something that I do like to teach people, and it's how to notice certain things and to look for certain keywords, and then you make a quick note of them so that you can do exactly what you mentioned. That plus automation, and how do I do this? But you need to know what the words are. And oftentimes it only takes maybe 2 or 3 searches, because Google's really good at returning results. You might not find what you're looking for, but all of a sudden you're like, oh, okay, those are the words they use. These are the way people are asking this question. It seems to be getting to the right answer. You take that, you put that into Google, and then you'll quickly get to someone who's laid it out perfectly well and understands what you're trying the problem you're trying to solve.
I think so in some cases, and I'll flip to the other side now, where many people have had this happen. You start to read that helpful article that someone has, but let's say it's on a site like Stack Overflow or Reddit, or so they're saying, oh, it's simple,
Yes.
but you're reading, and the more you read, the more your blood pressure is going up because you're seeing that, you have to use command line language, or maybe you have to start getting into the bowels of your hosting provider. And so I think it's important at that point to realize, okay, there are people who are reading what this person is explaining who will get this in a heartbeat. I'm not one of those people.
Mm-hmm.
And I need to now shift my mentality to, all right, I'm going to have to find somebody like a Steve to do this. And I'm just interested in, you telling me, like, when they come to you, what are the sorts of things that you have to maybe help them with? Like, yeah, this is going to cost a little bit of money, or yeah, this is going to require, getting some authentication information out of you. What do you like to explain to people who are brand new to using a pro like you for doing this?
Oftentimes it's understanding, well, why do you want to do that? I had someone who I worked with years ago who was absolutely brilliant, a brilliant programmer and developer. And, I was on this automation kick. I wanted to automate everything in my life, right? So that I wouldn't have to do anything anymore. Right? It just all be done for me. It would be great, fantastic.
Right.
And then, and he was great. He said, Steve, why do you want to automate that? Right? You shouldn't even do that. Or how often are you actually going to do that thing that you want to automate? So I think the first thing is to really try and just make a note of, oh, I'm doing this. And then just try and write out what it is you're trying to accomplish. And then every time, just notice yourself doing it. Maybe keep a simple, log or a note on your phone or wherever, Evernote, whatever you use, that okay, I'm trying to do this. Okay, I had to do this. Oh, I had to do, 80 more names. I had to I had to get someone to put this into my database, or I had to do, send out these emails and requests, or people are asking me about this event and I got to send out an agenda. All of these things that you're going to have to do over and over and over again. These are the things that you want to try and find a tool or a way to streamline the process. But if it's things that are complicated and new every time and you don't do them that often, don't bother. Just do it. Right. Just get it done.
So, yeah. And if you're, for example, going to step into a new tool like a CRM or marketing automation or communication software, right? Yes, this is the first time. You don't want to bother with the install. That's an obvious one. But you're right. You could be surprised by, once you've got the pieces there, that one extra hop, or configuration that needs to be made to make another workflow possible. That's not so hard. I have to say, it's surprising to hear you kind of playing devil's advocate, but you're right. The minute I started down this road of automation, I found that I could easily get into areas of overkill. So,
well, and automation can become a real dangerous tool as well, because if you don't know what you're doing and you haven't tested things properly and you haven't mapped it out correctly, all of a sudden automation just cranked something out 200 times that you didn't want to have happen. Now you have a bigger mess on your hands. So I always kind of encourage people, and I would say this, starting out, write it down. Just do not go into a tool. Do not look for a tool. Do not try and mess around with a tool. Just write down what you're trying to do, kind of in a step-by-step way, and what you want to have happen. And just get really clear on that, because once you've laid that out very clearly, then you can go and talk to someone like myself, yourself, or another expert to say, I need this piece. Can you fix this piece for me? Or can you do the whole thing for me? Right? And then that person that you're working with will say, oh, I can do all of this, but I can't do that. That's going to cost you a fortune. Do you really need it?
Right. Anything else on how you scope, or the main things that you want anybody to know who is about to embark on using someone to automate a process?
Again, pen and paper is often your best place to start. And then Google, just some preliminary searches. Once you believe you have your your process down and what you want to do. Then start doing some Google searches, familiarize yourself with some of the terms and lingo, and then the tools that are out there. And then you'll be in a better position to start actually searching for someone and asking questions. When I scope things out for people, I usually just go right back to basics. I'm the son of an electrician and a troubleshooter, so I always just go right back to basics. And some of my questions, when I'm starting off with a client, might seem simplistic, but oftentimes we didn't have to do complicated. We could just do simple.
Right.
And we built.
And yet you had to think it through. Like one example I would say on how that might go is, let's say that someone is they want a form to work and they want it to provide an answer for A or B, and maybe they haven't gone down the branch of choice B to really think, oh no, I actually need to send them an email right now saying, you're going to have to, we'll have to call you for that. We're not able to give you that completely in an automated way. If they just even sketch out the branches and look down, they'll realize, oh, I didn't think about how I was going to handle that. Yep,
absolutely. And then again, giving that to a person who has the experience with the tools, they can say, oh, okay, no problem. I can create that branch and, where do you want it to go there after? Oh, okay. What information do you want to send them? Easy for them. And then, so it's a matter of, if you're a business owner listening to this, it's the value of your time. And I always suggest to people to just do the quick back of the napkin math on what your time's worth, right? There's what's your magic number. And I recently learned this little trick that I hadn't done, I don't think well. Like, let's say, I don't know, if your goal is say $10,000 a month, right? That you're a service provider, you want to make your $10,000 a month. Okay, well, simple back of the napkin math, that's about $2,500 a week, right?
Yeah.
So that's $500 a day divided by, so that's $62.50 an hour. Well, we all know that on an 8-hour day, 5 days a week, we're not 100% productive in all that time.
Sure.
So if you just take figure that you can maybe squeeze out 3 super productive hours in a day. The rest is emails that back, dealing with things. If you get 3 super productive hours in a day to build your business, right? So now your time's worth $187.50 an hour.
Right.
Let's just round it up, $200 an hour. So now you start to look at, is it really worth me trying to figure out this tool? Is this my business? No. Right? Then it's time to call in an expert. But a small investment of time of mapping out the process, right? Writing it out, and then familiarizing yourself with a little bit of the terminology will really help a business owner avoid getting sucked in and overpaying because someone sounds slick and they sound really good and they offer this really cool thing that is 100% useless and is not going to bring them any business, and they go, oh, it didn't work. Right.
Or they stay up all night trying to get it to work themselves.
Right.
I think you can also work that same back of napkin math going forward if you're not sure if now is the time to actually make something automated. Look and see how many hours it might save you and what else you could be going and doing with those hours.
Absolutely. If the economics are there, then you'll know it's worth it, and that's just part of business. If the economics are not there, then are you doing it just to kind of satisfy a curiosity? And again, the only reason I'm good at doing certain things now is because I've literally invested, let's say, months of my life.
Much more than you wanted to. Yes.
More than I ever wanted to, and more than anyone ever should. I want to be able to listen to this podcast later, so I remind myself to when to not do something and just hire an expert. Because as I have a background in engineering, right? So engineers like, I can figure that out.
I can figure that out. Yes, and that's a very dangerous thing to say.
Yes.
That's cool. I want to come back to one of the learn this things where, I'm not turning away, but I think it's one that we often do, and you've got some good insight on it. Most of us don't spend more than a moment's thinking about where we're hosting the data that we have, the website information, and maybe what is being used to power the servers that are having all of our information. And we're spending on it. So frankly, our dollars are being used to vote on what kind of places we have. Data centers are really energy hogs. If anybody looks up like what a Google or a Facebook data center looks like, and they look at all the air conditioning and the fact that they put them right near rivers because they just use huge amounts of water, when you add it all up, this gets pretty big. And I know that you've looked into how to do something about the ways that we spend our money with hosting. Can you tell us a bit about where we're actually seeing our bits and bytes go?
Sure. Well, I'll just back up a sec and just tell you the story of how this all came to be.
Please.
I'm hosting sites for Canadian customers, and they want the sites to be quicker and more responsive. And you can imagine it if the web server is in Seattle or Los Angeles, and so you hit some request, you hit a button, it goes all the way to Seattle and then comes back to you. So I wanted data centers that were closer to Toronto, Montreal, Vancouver,
sure,
and also had
Eastern Canada and US,
and also had Canadian data residency, because some of the information sometimes gets you want it to sit in a Canadian data center and you don't want it to be in the cloud and subject to all these other rules. So that's where this
jurisdictions
originally started from. And I found a hosting company called Green Geeks. And what makes Green Geeks interesting, and I found they had all the requirements, right? They had Canadian data centers. They were going to make it fast. The pricing was reasonable and pretty much in line with everything else I was looking at. But what made them interesting to me is that they will actually invest in like carbon offset credits to the tune of about 300% of the energy that their servers use. So they're really, the more you use their servers, the more they're pumping back into energy, wind energy offset, carbon offset credits. So, and just to give you said if anyone Googles it, if you look at Green Geeks, there's a stat on their site that right now the websites and the servers and the air conditioning to power those servers and everything else, if you took it that globally, it's about 2% of the energy that we consume overall. On everything,
Wow.
It's about 2% is just to run servers that run websites and power the internet. So to put that in perspective, that's about the same amount as the entire airline industry pre-COVID-19, obviously. But that's about how much energy and carbon is going out into the world.
You're right. That's quite something. I suppose the other piece of information that I don't always remember is that when we are counting part of that internet stat, compared to, let's say, a decade ago when it was email and attachments that you might put and websites. Mm-hmm. Well, we have to add now all of the data that we don't quite think of, all of our VoIP activity, all virtual meetings, and we're having this call in mid-2020 when a whole lot of them are virtual, and streaming services, right? So your YouTubes, your Netflixes, your Amazon Primes, Hulus, goes on and on. This is, what's happening. And let's face it, our businesses through our own, what we provide, or maybe if we're an on-premise business and we offer Wi-Fi or we offer it for our staff, this is included in the number. This is how that number got to be 2%.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And so I switched all my clients, the websites that I help run and host for clients. I switched them all over to Green Geeks this spring, just because I thought it was a great concept and why not? Mm-hmm. The pricing was ultimately the same. The service is great. So if anyone's interested in that, again, there'll be a link on my site. They can check it out, or they can just go to greengeeks.com and have a look for themselves.
Yeah, really appreciate that, Steve. It's a thing that, like, if the price is the same and we're encouraging good behavior by hosts versus other hosts that aren't so scrupulous, I think it's one way that we can, look at this stack as something that we're a part of, right? And we can't just wave it away or dismiss it out of our minds. When we're doing internet-based activities, this is part and parcel of what we're doing.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely.
So well put. So I'm intensely curious on, we've talked about a number of things and you seem to move from them so effortlessly. How did you get to be this guy that knows many, many parts of the stack and the high to the low? You mentioned engineering, but tell me more. Tell me about what the journey was that got you here.
So again, I mentioned that, I'm the son of an electrician, and my father was a troubleshooting electrician for the mines up in Sudbury for Falconbridge. And
wow,
we used to do a lot of construction and things like that. So it was all about just solving problems, right? And when I went into engineering, into mechanical engineering at Queen's, I just learned how to approach problems, how to solve problems, what is the process. So I'm kind of a process-oriented guy that then fell in love with just, sales and the psychology of sales and performance and everything else. So I spent most of my career in sales and business development, selling everything from, business information from Dun & Bradstreet to working for a number of pharmaceutical companies and in the medical industry. And then finally, in 2013, I decided to branch out on my own, and because I had this love of technology and problem solving. So marketing to me was the perfect marriage of this process-oriented and data-minded person that I was, combined with trying to sell something, right? Trying to actually make something happen, right? Trying to solve a real problem in the world, and nothing happens unless somebody sells something. So it's just going through, and it's that perfect marriage of those two things. So I like to, often say I'm not a great salesperson, to be honest, but I am. I'm a great salesperson's best friend, because I'll make their life easier. Because I know I know the process and the mindset that they go through. I know the challenges that they live with their customers and with trying to, solve certain things or respond to certain requests. And they want it easier, and they don't want to have to fill out so much paperwork and so many reports. Yeah. So I know that pain. They just want to go out and talk to people and, spend time, having fun and working with clients and being with their clients. So,
isn't that the best way to put it? I mean, we as human beings, we weren't put here to be robots, but we're lucky enough, we're living in an age now where there are robots there, and we should make them do what we need, which is all the stuff that we don't need to do, so we can do the human stuff.
Exactly.
That's very well put, and I'm really glad that you have found such an interesting blend. I agree with you that marketing has kind of, in the last decade or so, come on so much into all of this automation. Marketing and technology are pretty much indistinguishable at this point, and you've figured out a really good way to harness them. Steve, how can people get a hold of you if they're interested in talking with you?
If people want to reach out to me, they can go to my website on 628media.com. I'm also available on, through Instagram, Facebook, and LinkedIn. Again, if you just look for 628 Media, you should be able to find me on all of those channels.
That's terrific. Well, listen, thanks once again for joining me today.
Well, it's been a pleasure, Glenn. And again, I'll have something available on my site as well as yours. I'll just put a list of links where people can learn some of these tools and what's available out there. And hopefully it'll be helpful to the audience.
We'll absolutely include them in the show notes.
Fantastic.
Thanks again.
Thank you.
Thanks for listening. Follow the show on Twitter @Funnel Reboot. If you like what you have heard today, please consider leaving a review wherever you get your podcasts.